Hello everyone, this is Aaron. While I'm editing, I just wanted to throw out a quick note that this is Brandon and I's episode 0, or the pilot episode. This is the episode that we originally recorded in the later end of 2024, right after Alien Romulus had just released. This is when we were originally going to start the podcast, but obviously because of life and our birthday and the holidays, that just quickly derailed. So yeah, I just wanted to throw that out there in case this conversation that we have seems a little dated. Some stuff's obviously happened since then, and our subsequent episodes obviously. So with that being said, this is episode 0. Hello everyone, welcome to the Inner Podcast, where you and everyone else can embrace your inner nerd. I am your host Aaron, and this is my co-host
Brandon. We did not.
Welcome.
I was gonna say we did not rehearse an intro. We should probably.
We didn't.
Yeah.
But you know what? That's fine. That's fine. Thank you for tuning in to our pilot episode, and first of what will hopefully be many episodes to this podcast. I just wanted to take this as an opportunity, get our juices flowing a little bit and maybe talk about some of the things that have happened these past couple months, because believe you me, there's been a plethora of things to talk about. But before we get into any of all that, Brandon, I need speak English, please. Before we get into any of all of that, I'm still doing it. Before we get into any of that, thank you. Brandon, how are you?
I'm okay. Tired. How are you?
Tired. Also tired. We are recording on a Friday. It's been a long week.
Yes.
I'm sure as it is for a lot of people out there right now. We have been quite behind, and we have been a little absent from YouTube lately.
Yes, we have.
Not that we have a big following, across either of our channels, but, we're still small. But consistency-wise, we have been away quite a bit. I mean, that's just life. Both working full-time jobs. You got a kid.
Yeah.
It's all kinds of stuff.
Life kind of just punches you right in the nards.
The nards.
Or knockers, yes. If you're a lady. We're gender neutral here in this podcast.
Already getting political.
I just trying to make this a nice, equal playing ground.
Everyone welcome.
Everyone welcome and everyone bullied. I mean, yeah, I said it. Bring bullying back.
I'm sure there will be very opinionated words thrown around this podcast from time to time.
Yeah.
But, so I kind of wanted to, let's just get into it.
Okay.
There's so much to talk about. I think first,
like what, Aaron?
Well, let me tell you.
Okay, cool.
So, I think what's easiest to start off with, because out of all the things that we're talking about, this was the first to happen, was Deadpool and Wolverine.
Yeah.
I know we're a little behind on the curve.
Mm-hmm.
But I just kind of wanted to get our voices into it. Not that we're going to say anything new. Everything that needs to be said or needed to be said has been said. But we've seen the movie twice.
Yep.
We saw it.
And I'm about to see it a third time.
Oh?
Yeah. Next Wednesday. No.
I'm so...
Thursday? Shit. I'm supposed to see it, I think, next week or the week after. Oh, no, it's the week after. I'm going to be seeing
it in theaters for a long time.
I'm going to be seeing it with a friend of mine who has not seen it because he has a life. But, yeah.
I mean, yeah, because we saw it with, family. And then we saw it again together, just on our own.
Mm-hmm.
And I guess you're going to go see it a third time. Just to get the ball rolling on Deadpool and Wolverine, though, I mean, it goes without saying it's a blast to watch.
It is.
But a little quick preview to my opinion about the movie. I don't think it's the best Deadpool movie.
Probably not.
And while I do believe that the movie is a great way to bring back and honor Wolverine, I don't think it's the best Wolverine performance either.
Also agreed.
I mean, so but that's like quick rundown. A little bit of the nitty gritty parts of it all, though, is let's start off with the good. Some things that maybe you liked about the movie.
Well, for starters, like, just to throw out, like, the obvious, the lengths they went to just bring back Wolverine, like, something that was kind of up in the air for a while as far as fans knew. We weren't sure if we wanted a return for Wolverine, not for the sake of, like, us not liking Wolverine, but, like, Logan set this, like, bar for not only of what a Wolverine movie should be like, but it was, the end of Wolverine. So a lot of people were like, do we want Wolverine back? Is it kind of like disgracing the end of Wolverine? But we got Wolverine back. It was great. They did a lot of other stuff in the movie too. They did things that I didn't think they were going to do, like as far as like what like achievements and the lengths that they went to making the movie what it is. I know it's very vague, but
if you're worried about spoilers, I figured the movie's been out for
no, it's not like spoilers.
More than
It's just like I don't know. Like I know we're talking about the things that we liked about the movie. I didn't want to be like, I don't know. I didn't want to like say all the things that I liked about it because I didn't want to like drag out, I guess. But just
we have all the time in the world.
True, but just the fact that they brought Wolverine back in general was such a big deal and such a good thing too. And because we're not worrying about spoilers, the variants of Wolverine were also some of my favorite things that they brought into the movie. All but one.
Oh?
Yeah, the first variant that they show of Wolverine, that's not the main Wolverine or the one that they use throughout the whole movie, is the so-called comic book accurate Wolverine.
Oh.
Because technically it still wasn't comic book accurate. And like
yeah, because like
they like exaggerated it to make it funny, but I don't know.
I mean, it's a Deadpool movie. That's gonna be the angle.
Right.
I mean, you're right though. If it was comic book accurate, yes, he would be shorter, but he'd also be much more like bulky and husky almost.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, I agree. That's it. While it was funny, and
it was
as strange as it is, he had like really cool comic book, almost like Ultimate Universe Wolverine like hairstyle, which actually looked really good until he like hopped off the stool. He was like really tiny.
Yeah, he's giving off really good vibes too. Like when he looks over his shoulder, looking like that sexy Hugh Jackman. That he kind of gave me like X-Men Origins Wolverine vibes for a quick second. And like he had like the tight t-shirt and everything, and I was so excited, and then he stepped off the stool and I'm like, what the fuck?
He's so little.
He's so tiny. He's a mini me.
How do you feel about okay, so the intro to the movie is great. But the way Deadpool goes about how do you even word that?
I don't know, it depends on what you're talking about.
Abusing the body.
Oh.
The memory of Logan.
How
How did you feel about that?
It was weird. Like, it worked as far as like what they were going for that whole scene, and it wouldn't have worked as well if they, like, what they were aiming for wouldn't work as well if they didn't do what they did with Wolverine's body.
Right.
But it was weird. Like, I had such it kind of goes back to the whole like disrespecting the Logan movie, because it's funny and it works, and the scene was brutal, the action was pretty sick, but we as like Wolverine fans went through a hardship when Logan came out.
Yeah.
And all of that pain and all of that like depression that came with what was almost like a very peaceful scene as well, just like got shat on by Deadpool. But there again, at the same time, it's something that I would expect as well, because Deadpool's not known for being like a respectful guy.
Right.
So overall it works with the character, it works with the movie, it makes sense. So who else but Deadpool but to disrespect something so important?
Right. I mean, and that's kind of like how you would see it in like a Deadpool comic book, for instance.
Right.
You know, if there was the Deadpool video game, is a great example of how, there's these characters that comic book fans really like, but in the perspective of Deadpool, it's all a joke, and they're more comedic, and they're colorful and animated and so on and so forth. So it's kind of how it is in this movie, but if you're on the other side of the spectrum where like maybe you're binge watching all of the Wolverine movies for the first time, or you're a huge Wolverine fan, and then you get to Deadpool and you see the intro and him digging up and dismembering and pulling apart Logan's body, then you're kind of sitting there like, what the fuck is going on?
Right.
But and then, I mean, to go off of like what you were saying, it's great action. The movie's filled with all kinds of great cameos and references, especially the Wolverine like variants and such. Some of which I didn't even realize what they were until, after watching the movie. Like Wolverine hung up and crucified on the big X, and I loved the brown suit Wolverine. That's the look that I've always wanted out of Wolverine, is him in the yellow and brown suit. And then just to do like the whole Todd McFarlane reference, and it was awesome.
Right.
Henry Cavill as Wolverine was insane.
Super
for
insane.
The first time.
Yeah.
Because you hear rumors about that, like, oh, Henry Cavill's gonna be Wolverine, and then you're like, shut up. Like, all you guys in your fake news and stuff, like, that's bullcrap. He's never gonna be Wolverine. And then all of a sudden, for a whole 30 seconds of the movie, he's Wolverine. It was kind of crazy.
Yeah. And it
Uh,
worked.
it kind of. I mean, obviously, for as small of a scene, it doesn't seem like they worked too much on his beard and his hair, which we've talked about before. But if there was like a fuller, like a bigger scene, or if there was, even a whole movie or something, I'm sure they would work harder on making a hairstyle and a look that Henry Cavill fits into,
Right.
the same way they do with any other comic book character. But that even plays on to like other characters, kind of proving my point that did have bigger scenes in this movie, such as Blade and Elektra and Gambit, which was probably the big one.
Yeah, I remember getting really fucking excited when Gambit walked on screen. And I wasn't paying attention much to the rest of the audience. I don't necessarily remember how they reacted to him, but I was freaking out. And I know that there are people out there who know this, but I think it's a big deal. And it's like such a good, it's such a great thing that they were finally able to bring Channing Tatum in as Gambit. It's super exciting.
Right. And on top of that, because we know some people that didn't like the Gambit thing, I think it worked great. And I'm sure a lot of people watching or have kept up with, all of the news and stuff like that, or maybe even follow Channing Tatum or so on and so forth. I'm sure they know that the way that they conducted Gambit in the movie, just like anything else in a Deadpool movie, has like a comedic setup to it.
Right.
In his case, they played off of his the way that he talks and his linguistics and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Which, because again, just like Henry Cavill and his hair, I'm sure if there was, if they were taking Gambit more seriously, or if he had his own movie or whatever it may be, Channing Tatum's not going to play too hard into the voice. Like, he'll do the accent. He'll do the Cajun accent, which he, from my understanding, he's from that part of the U.S. and he knows people and he's had family members that, actually talk like that. So he understands it, and I believe it, and it comes through. But they probably just told him to talk really fast so that it's almost incoherent at that point.
Yeah. I don't think if there was an actual Gambit movie, I don't think he would. I think he would, dumb it down a little bit. Well, not dumb it down, but, he would still have the same voice. It just wouldn't be as quick. It would be a little bit more understandable. And he probably wouldn't say some of the outrageous things that he said. It might be flirty, it might be cocky or whatever, but it would not be that nasty.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not even gonna try to rehearse what or regurgitate what he said.
I will never forget what he said. I shot him out of my dad's dick ready.
So did you see, I'm assuming you did, it was all over the internet, somewhere in the beginning of the week, Ryan Reynolds and IGN and Disney and so on and so forth released that clip of Gambit surviving the fight.
I did.
Yeah. Do you think? I mean, I know they've speculated the idea of just if and when they bring the X-Men in, that he would be the Gambit for it. But any particular thoughts on how they would do it or how it would even work? if it would work.
It's weird because, like, there's ways they can do it to where it's the same Gambit, and that's probably where they'd be heading.
Mm-hmm.
Especially with that tease, it makes it seem like as if there was going to be a Gambit moving forward with the MCU, it would be the same Gambit. And I don't mean like just like Channing Tatum's Gambit. I just mean like from that era and universe and what have you.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't know, because the Gambit that I want to see in a movie wouldn't be that one. Like, okay. I'm fine with Channing Tatum. I'm fine with the voice, everything.
Like, you're okay with him playing the comic book accurate Gambit?
Yeah, but like knowing Gambit's origin, I don't know if you know Gambit's origin, but
I'm not very. There's a lot of X-Men characters. While I know a lot about Marvel and DC and stuff, X-Men is probably what my least.
Well,
where my knowledge steers off a little bit.
Basically, like, because he mentions in the movie that he's not sure where he's from. If for all he knows, he was born in the void.
Yeah.
That wouldn't make sense for Gambit as for the character that he is. It wouldn't make any lick of sense at all.
Right.
Because he does have like a full origin story. He has a reason why he is the way he is. He even has reasons why his powers work the way they do. Like, he is a mutant, but technically his powers are augmented. Because when he was growing up, he could never control his abilities. And they weren't nearly as powerful until he met Mr. Sinister. And the only reason why he got his powers the way he did was because he agreed to do like a heist for Mr. Sinister. He led this like mutant team of like criminals, and then that started his like journey as like a thief. And then later on down the line, he met he was trying to steal from this rich guy who had this like almost like a museum in his house, and he met a version of Storm that was turned into a child. And then he was introduced to the X-Men. So just like all of that.
I wasn't paying attention. My camera cut out.
Oh, okay.
Actually, you could keep talking.
But that just wouldn't make sense for Gambit. And I feel like his relationship, although they could work it to where everything like lines up, but I just feel like that rebellious and not so Boy Scout type of X-Men.
Okay.
Like when he's introduced to the others, it's just going to be a little different. Like they're going to ask him like, "Where do you come from?" "Oh, the void." That's it.
Yeah.
Like he has no story. Is like we don't know who trained him or anything. This version of Gambit might not even be a mutant. We don't know.
Right.
Like aside from the way he looks and how he does everything correctly, he doesn't make sense as a character. Because of
only thing
I was just going to say because of his origin consists of the void, then it just doesn't make sense.
Right. And the only thing I could think of to clean that up maybe is just that if Channing Tatum were to come into the MCU as like the official Gambit, is that like they end up just having him play, a new like their version of Gambit, and then whether it's another Deadpool movie or another Deadpool cameo or appearance or something, they would like reference a Gambit from another universe. I don't know. Like that it is, I agree, it would be kind of confusing on how they're going to try to bring in Gambit from the void. But that's also kind of like the X-Men in general. we've talked about this before ad nauseum, but it's strange that it's great that they're bringing in the X-Men. They're characters that we've wanted to see in the MCU for a long time, and Kevin Feige has said that he's wanted in the MCU and stuff like that. But the thing is the X-Men and their comics, their animated show, the movies, they're all centered around like this big political conflict of man versus mutant. Mm-hmm. And mutants being, pushed aside or hated and looked down upon by mankind and stuff like that. But the MCU and the rest of Marvel is not like that. And so people are going to be watching these movies, and in the movies, Captain America, Iron Man, Spider-Man, the Hulk, they're all like celebrities at this point. They're all at a point where the world knows who the Avengers are. Mm-hmm. And they all have superpowers. And it's not like the public knows where all of these Avengers got their powers from and stuff. But they're okay with it.
Yeah.
And the X-Men, unless they bring the X-Men in starting at like a really low point or something like that, the X-Men are just another group of good people with powers that are trying to help humans.
Yeah.
So are the humans just going to like point at the Avengers and be like, "Oh, cool. That guy can fly. Wow, that's a big green man." And then look at the X-Men and be like, "Ew, that guy can shoot lasers out of his eyes. Ew, that's a big blue man." It's like how are they going to like work the dynamic, or like essentially what makes the X-Men the X-Men?
The only thing
in terms of narrative.
The only thing I can think of is that around the time when the X-Men are introduced, or just mutants in general, like I know that they stated that there are mutant characters already in the MCU, but
right.
The only way I can think about it is like around the time of like the rise of the X-Men, there's like, maybe because of the Avengers and because of superhumans, there's a lot of people who are mutants who are coming out of the shadows, and they want to make a name for themselves, whether that's a good thing or a bad thing. And Havoc kind of just like runs wild across the world because mutants are just like rising up, trying to make a name for themselves. And again, that could rather be a good thing or a bad thing. Like they could rather be like, "Oh, I want to use my powers for good," and maybe cause chaos in the way because they don't know how to control it. Some mutants, their powers aren't like as beneficial. Like we know that there's a kid in Marvel who can only use his power once because he's a bomb and he will die. Right. So like maybe he tried using his power and killed a bunch of people. So like the reputation of mutants skyrockets to this horrific image, to where when the distinction comes out that like there are superhumans and then there are mutants, people are going to be like, "Oh, well, we hate mutants because of their reputation of causing nothing but chaos." And like maybe even the X-Men themselves, they focus on like how many lives can we save, what can we do to stop this threat, but in the process causing a bunch of destruction, kind of like a whole Man of Steel thing. Like the X-Men are fighting Sentinels, bad mutants, whatever, but right. in the process they're destroying buildings and everything. So once again, they're like fueling this poor reputation that mutants already have, and the Avengers are the only people who are like, "Look, we essentially did the same thing. We understand, like, there's a cost. The only difference is you guys, or mutants in general, just have a poor reputation, so you guys are suffering for it." It's kind of like in real life, like when it comes to race, like the distinguished, like, everyone's human. we're all the same. But there are certain reputations that all races have, which like cause stereotypes. So we all look at each other differently for like dumb reasons or things that happened in the past. So that's how they would play it with mutants, is because like they're all the same. And realistically, superhumans and mutants are all humans as well. But it's purely just their reputation that's ruining everything.
But I think what they might have trouble, because even though that is probably the strongest way for them to do it, I think where they might have trouble with doing that is, one, they run into, you know, the audience being like, oh, you're trying to make it too much like too political, or there's going to be that person who misuses the word woke. Or you just have the simple fact that like narratively that still doesn't separate their situation much from like the people who made themselves into super soldiers in the Falcon and the Winter Soldier.
Yeah. Well, another argument that you could provide is what comic books have been doing for years, even before the MCU. Like, how much, like, or, like, all comic books do it, but Marvel is really well known for involving real life situations, because, like, Stan Lee wanted to make Marvel as relatable as possible. So, like, he set everyone in New York City and, like, tried using real life events. So, like, 9/11 or using, like, real life political figures. All of that. Even, like, when it came to, like, situations in real life, Marvel jumped in on it. Way before the MCU did. So, I mean, mutants themselves are kind of like a ploy on that whole spiel as well, like, to begin with.
Yeah.
So, despite how you want to do it or what you're going to run into, it's kind of the original message to begin with. Like, the whole point about mutants in Marvel was to kind of, like, touch upon real life, like, racism and discrimination. So either way, you're going to run into it. People are just going to see it differently because it's put on TV, like, or like on a movie screen instead of on a piece of paper. But it's essentially the same message, despite how you want to do it. Or you could just try to avoid it in general. Like, we've already seen it in countless X-Men movies. We've seen it plenty in comic books. And they could just avoid it altogether. They could mention that in the past, mutants had a poor reputation, and that people didn't like mutants in the past.
Yeah.
And then just leave it at that.
But the problem with that, and I guess the problem that I see, is if that's the case, if we're going down the route that, like, they're just bringing in the characters and they're dodging a lot of the big arcs of the X-Men and fixating on more of the action-y or the stuff that ties the X-Men into, like, the Avengers and stuff like that. Again, not that I don't want to see any of the X-Men, but then at least I asked the question, what's the point? Like, what makes them stand out in this world of superheroes if you're going to bring them in? Like, then at that point, it's just to bring them in. Like, I think the Fantastic Four could have a big presence because with the news of Doctor Doom and everything, and the fact that he's casted and that he's definitely going to be in the movies, the Fantastic Four are going to be bringing in a lot of things like Galactus and their probably going to be what ties Doctor Doom into the main continuity, seeing that it's a variant of Tony Stark.
So you kind of just answered your own question, though.
So you think it's more so that instead of bringing in the mutants and the X-Men, it's more so that they can introduce other things like bad guys?
Well, yeah, like, especially with the examples that you just used for the Fantastic Four about them bringing in Doctor Doom, Galactus. For the X-Men, especially just with how superhero movies are in general nowadays, like, they're all the same to a degree.
Mm-hmm.
The only difference the only thing that they're bringing in to the table are new characters. So Marvel could use this opportunity to bring in characters that the X-Men movies didn't utilize, like Mr. Sinister, or they did Cassandra Nova, which was kind of a shocker, but so like this is their opportunity to bring in new characters, or like characters that we've seen in comic books but just haven't been seen on screen before. And they could bring back like old characters that we've already seen on screen, like Magneto and what have you. But Marvel's only advantage is that they can do it however they want now. If they wanted to, they could do a more comic book accurate, or I wouldn't say comic book accurate, but they could do like a more comic book like Magneto. They could do someone who's maybe a little bit more like actiony and like less of just like a guy standing there and like hovering around and like moving metal. Like in the comic books, he's a little bit more like a supervillain. He's like fucking jacked, and he's got like this super like comic book like outfit. While in the movies, they always just found a way to make his clothes look like the outfit. Besides Michael Fassbender's two outfits.
So maybe we're kind of answering a question that we had before about Gambit, and bringing Gambit into the main continuity may or may not bring Sinister into the situation?
It could, and that's just one other character who has some kind of connection to the bad guy. Because there's a lot of X-Men characters. There's Jean and Cyclops with their relationship with Mr. Sinister. There's Cable and his relationship, which is almost the same thing. There's Gambit. There's... you could probably almost name any X-Men character, and they have some kind of relationship with Mr. Sinister. Wolverine and Sabretooth. Specifically more Sabretooth, but still... a whole list of people who've been affected by Mr. Sinister throughout like over 100 years. So yeah. Oh, and with Gambit, I would say that something else they could do is like the tease that they did. It could just be like a metaphorical sense stating that Gambit will be returning to the MCU, but it doesn't have to be that Gambit. It could kind of like what they did with Wolverine, like how the Deadpool and Wolverine and the X-Men movies Logan are two different Wolverines. But they have the exact same life. And even when you look at his memories, like when Cassandra Nova's like fingering his forehead, if you look at all the memories that like flash on screen, they're all the exact same memories from his origin all the way up to Logan. Like they're the same.
Right.
So they could just do that with Gambit and make it to where the Gambit in the MCU is almost identical in every way, but he was actually born on Earth and not from the void.
Yeah.
So, and maybe has an outfit that's not so rubbery.
That's... So,
He had a
Now, I
really
guess
nice
now
jacket, and he had a good frame.
Right.
And I loved his boots.
So circling back to Gambit, then, that's something that I know we talked about. Like, I feel like a simple fix they could have done was, just do the neck a little different. Instead of doing like a Batman style cowl, where he can't move his head apart from his shoulders, they could have easily just done like he had a headpiece and then the torso piece. And then, like, if they wanted to fill the gap, maybe he wore, like, a scarf that went with the outfit. Or, like, I don't know, something. Like, they've done comic book outfits for a long time. I feel like they could have figured that one out.
I think they were just so excited to do, like, a really comic book accurate Gambit that they were kind of like, I'd say let's go back 10 years and do it the way they used to do superhero outfits.
Just cast the actor in latex and
Gambit.
Gambit. Anyways, but and then, you know, there's some other things. So, and then also kind of going back to Wolverine a little bit, because this is kind of a Wolverine movie.
Yeah.
It's called Deadpool and Wolverine, but it's really a Wolverine movie.
It should have been called Wolverine and Deadpool's tagging along.
But so this movie kind of made it clear, and as far as we can tell, Marvel has made it clear that Hugh Jackman is back and he's going to be Wolverine going forward. That's probably going to come along with the territory of, you know, he's going to get a new suit every movie. He's going to, you know, he's going to have to go through the grind that all the other MCU actors are going to have to go through.
Right.
Or that they're already going through. Not that he hasn't done it before, but he's probably going to be picking up the slack a little bit more unfortunately, a lot later into his life, and not sooner. But it's good to see that he seems to be into it, and as long as he's committed, I'm sure it'll show, you know, that he loves playing the character and stuff. And that's all that really matters, because if he starts falling out, then the performance will start to fall out, so on and so forth. Not that he's being paid millions upon millions of dollars to do it anyway.
Yeah. He's literally paid to be on a good diet and to stay fit.
Right. Which is probably why a lot of these actors can do it so well and so efficiently, is because they have all the time and all the money in the world to do it. And it's like, oh, here's this many millions of dollars. We just need you to have one scene with abs.
Right.
Please. And then they get it. It's funny because talking about Deadpool and Wolverine, we're pretty much talking about X-Men. But I mean, that's kind of what this movie brings up. Like, we wonder where the MCU is going to go, like, from now on, with the X-Men, with particular X-Men, such as Wolverine, how Deadpool's going to fit into it. And with that being said, that kind of makes me think about another conversation we had. I think we had this conversation after the first time watching the movie. Is that the whole movie's kind of like a metaphor of sorts. I could be wrong, but it lines up perfectly. About, you know, the whole premise of the movie is around Logan from the universe of the X-Men and stuff dying, and that him being the anchor being to their universe makes the whole thing universe deteriorate, and Deadpool has to like figure out a way to stop that. And I feel like it's kind of a metaphor to the MCU, because the MCU was like the biggest thing in the world.
Yeah.
Like, everyone knew, even if you're not someone who watched movies or like kept up with comic book movies, everyone knew that the MCU and Marvel movies was like, that's like what it felt like. That's what all media was like centered around for a lot of our lives.
Right. And
then all of a sudden, Robert Downey Jr., Iron Man, is gone. And Disney and Marvel, they had to figure out how to go forward without him. And then we ended up getting all of the shows, and we ended up getting a ridiculous amount of content that no one asked for.
Marvel became a joke after Iron Man died.
Right. And the quality started to dip. The audience started to like move away from it all. And luckily, I feel like they're coming back a little bit. They're stepping back. They're reevaluating. Deadpool and Wolverine definitely got them a good start back into it all.
And they're coming out with stuff that people are actually like excited for. Like,
right. I mean, like even the trailer for the new Captain America,
looks
Brave New World,
fucking awesome.
I know. I'm super excited.
Me too.
Aside from the fact that the Red Hulk is in that movie, but I'm just excited.
Yeah.
I was really nervous about Falcon as Captain America, watching Falcon and the Winter Soldier, but this movie looks like it'll make him shine a lot more.
Yeah.
And I mean, I still wanted Bucky as Captain America, but
me too. But
because I wanted to see Captain America with the metal arm, and
yeah, that would have been sick.
But I do, like, I'm excited.
Yeah.
Again, for Marvel movies.
I know you're not as excited, but I'm really excited for
Daredevil.
Daredevil. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, but for good reason though. It doesn't look like the same unfortunate version of Daredevil that we got in She-Hulk. Like, they're going back to
it was literally good
all of the Daredevil show.
The whole time he was in the building, good. It was great. And then as soon as they like start just like casually talking outside, from that point all the way to the end of,
and he like dropped out of the sky. Am I remembering that right? Didn't she like call for him, kind of like she did her fourth wall break and called for him, and he like dropped out of the sky where he like rolled from out of frame?
He just like jumped out of a tree.
Yeah.
Like she was like, "Oh yeah, so I think like the MCU sucks at endings, and I just want," like she just names off a list of things that she wants, and the like robot Kevin Feige is like, "Okay, I guess I'll just give it to you because you're already shitting on my version of the ending." And then she's like, "And I want me and Matt to work out." And then he just like conveniently jumps out of a tree. Like, when the fuck did...
In his costume. In broad daylight.
When did he climb that tree? Like, was everyone just like gone and he's like, "I know everyone's gonna be here. I'm gonna climb this tree."
And my intense hearing can make me smell all these people coming in 3 days. I'm gonna go over there.
My intense hearing can make me smell.
That was a reference to Deadpool and Wolverine.
That's good.
But it's exciting to see Marvel kind of. But anyways, back to my point. I think that was like the thing, that Deadpool is probably going to be the anchor being going forward. So when they need to bring movies together, they're going to use essentially the logic of Deadpool and Wolverine, where they're going to use that to tie all of the new stuff together. I mean, we know we're getting Secret Wars, which takes place in Battleworld. And that's essentially where the Void that's like what the Void is. The Void's probably going to become Battleworld.
I never thought
and
about that.
Deadpool, yeah, and Deadpool's probably going to be the center of all of that, to bring all of that together. Because the way that, he's kind of like in between worlds, and how his character like fits in the middle of everything, like they'll use him to tie it all together.
Right.
That's probably how they'll bring the Fantastic Four in to the main continuity, is through Battleworld and stuff like that, which will bring Doctor Doom in and make him the center of all of that.
I'm so curious on what it would be like for like a Marvel movie that's filmed and written the way that like the Russo brothers did their Marvel movies, like Endgame, for example, and it being like that serious and intense, and you have someone like Deadpool in the background. Like, imagine if like the new age of Avengers, they're like on this serious mission, or like they're doing something serious and like life-threatening. And while they're all trying to like do serious shit, you have Deadpool talking in the comms and like saying nasty shit, and Falcon's like, "Who brought this guy?" Or like Peter's like, "Man, the mouth on him." Like, I'm so curious what that would be like. Or like everyone's having like a serious conversation, and Deadpool goes, "Yeah, we all know where that led us last time." And they're like, "Who are you talking to?" And he goes, "Don't worry about it." And he's like still looking at the camera.
So I'm actually curious, and I know we've talked about this before, but what a great way to like kind of bring this conversation full circle before moving on to the next thing. I brought it up a couple times now.
Okay.
Actually, before I do that, overall, what do you give Deadpool and Wolverine, like, out of 10?
I give it a solid 8 out of 10 because overall it was an enjoyable movie. I really liked it. I'm going to watch it again willingly. I will say that it's not like a perfect movie. And it's not like I expected it to be a perfect movie. There was just a lot of things that I was like watching it, I would have been like, "Oh, I think that it would have been better if they went in this direction," or if they like just made minor adjustments.
Yeah.
And I think there might have been too many sentimental moments where like
I was actually going to bring that
like
up too.
like
yeah.
characters like kind of reminiscing on like how they've fucked up in the past and that they're trying to do right.
Right.
They do that a little too much.
Yeah.
And like I understand like for the points that it's like every time they did it worked. But the fact that they had so many of them was irritating. I think like each character maybe needed like, I think Deadpool maybe needed 1. Wolverine maybe 2. And then everyone else had like maybe like a normal amount. But that's not what happened.
Right. I agree. I would probably give the movie like a 7.5. I'll say it's 7.5 out of 10. I think the reason is because based on my rewatch of the movie. The first time you watch it, it's big, it's crazy, you're super excited for a lot of it, and then rewatching it, I realized, like you were saying, how many sentimental moments there are and how often they like go back to those same things in the movie repeatedly.
Yeah.
For both characters. When they could have easily done it fewer times for each character.
Definitely.
I feel like that's what tampered the experience for me a little bit, because you kind of don't see it. Like, at least you don't notice how often it's happening until watching it again. I was like, damn, I didn't realize like they just did this.
Yeah.
Like, Deadpool just had this moment.
Right.
Wolverine just had this moment a little bit ago. So that's the only reason I give it 7.5. And again, it's not. I still don't think it's the strongest Deadpool movie. It's a stronger Wolverine movie than it is of the Deadpool trilogy.
Yeah. How I see it, it's kind of like how I felt about the first two movies, because I liked the first two movies.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm not sure how many people agree with me. I actually like the second one more for very personal reasons. But
See, that's where I have to disagree with you.
I know. I think a lot of people do. But I can't watch for as many times as I've seen them.
Mm-hmm.
The first one I did not mean to see as many times as I did. It like what that was 20.
You mean in like such a short amount of time?
Yeah.
Okay.
What was that? 2018? No, 2016?
17.
17. Okay. So I was in high school.
Let me check that really quick while you're talking. Go ahead.
I was in high school and I spent a lot of time with my friend Chris. And he has little brothers, and they had, at least they did at the time when they were like really little, they had the habit of watching the same movies over and over and over again.
2016.
2016. Okay, even worse. So a combination of them watching it all the time, just everyone that we knew like watching Deadpool or wanting to watch Deadpool over and over again, or at least for them it wasn't over and over again, but just within maybe within a year, 1 year, I saw Deadpool, the first one, too many fucking times. And then the second one was almost the same situation. Like, I saw it too many times in a row.
Yeah.
And I didn't want to. But then just recently, I want to say it was about like it was maybe the beginning of July or the end of June. Either way. But I was watching it with someone, and we were trying to have like a marathon to like get ready for the new movie. So we watched the first one and we watched the second one right after. And revisiting them is so nice and refreshing. Seeing them after so long is like, oh my god, these movies are so clever. They're so funny.
Yeah.
And then you like, as soon as you have the idea of watching it again, it's like, I'll wait maybe another 3 years to do so.
Right.
I personally love the second one a lot. I know a lot of people didn't, but Juggernaut. I love Juggernaut.
So I was gonna ask you, because talking about Deadpool and Wolverine, talking about the future of the MCU, I was gonna ask your favorite villain in Marvel.
Yeah.
Is Doctor Doom.
Yep.
And we got the news right at the release of Deadpool and Wolverine.
Yeah.
That Robert Downey Jr. was cast to play a variant version of Iron Man as Doctor Doom.
Yeah.
New mask, same task.
Yeah.
And I know you weren't very fond of it.
No.
Share your thoughts.
I feel like when it comes to like the overall fan base, I feel like it's right down the fucking middle as far as like who's on what side. I'm on the side that thinks it's fucking dumb. Like I'm not like one of those people who's like, oh, it might be good. No, I think it's the dumbest, like it's one of the dumbest fucking things that Marvel's done. I don't care if I sound dramatic. It's dumb. Robert Downey Jr. is a great actor.
Yeah.
Phenomenal. He was made for Tony Stark. But
He was not made for Doctor.
no! He was not. There's
So
much about Doctor Doom that's like requires his own spotlight, his own reputation. Like, when
Right.
people think about Iron Man now, they think about Robert Downey Jr. I don't want to be, like, 10 years from now, I don't want to be like, oh, Doctor Doom, Robert Downey Jr. No, that's
Yeah.
Iron Man. Like, Wolverine, that's like one day they're like, oh, yeah, so we're making an X-Men movie, right? And we're going to bring in Mr. Sinister. Guess who's going to play him? Hugh Jackman.
Hugh Jackman.
No! That's dumb.
Right.
There's like a list, like 20 different actors that I could think of before Robert Downey Jr.
I agree. Yeah. I mean, we were reminded, someone, close friend to both of us, mentioned that logistically, and it makes sense, is that he's a safe option. Yes, they're paying him millions upon millions, even more, to do it.
Mm-hmm.
But they're, it's true. He's a safe option. They know he'll do well. They know he'll commit to it. The list goes on. But you're right. To play devil's advocate a little bit, you're right. He shouldn't have been the first choice. They actually did say recently that the other person in talks was Mads Mikkelsen, which was already in Doctor Strange as the antagonist of the movie.
Still would have chosen him over Robert Downey Jr.
Right, like there are plenty of people. I don't think he'll do a bad job as Doctor Doom. I think just like he did with Iron Man, I think he'll be able to make it his own. But kind of like the topic of... We're going to take a quick break. My battery's dying.
Okay.
How? Are you charged? Hi.
My phone?
You better be fucking charged. I'm gonna be so mad. You fucking go. Okay. Where was I?
Just like,
So I think he'll be able to make it his own, just like he did with Iron Man. But the thing is, aside from like there being actors that could have played him, I think there's an approach, and I've said this before to you, I think there's an approach they could have gone with Doctor Doom that probably would have worked the best, essentially. Like, they could have saved money, probably, on a particular actor. Like, because we want, at least, and I know you want this, you want Doctor Doom to be like a presence. You want him to be the character from the comic books, as we do with a lot of these comic book characters. But we want a Doctor Doom that feels like he could take on anything, like he's the master of the situation, kind of thing. And I think a way they could have done that, and they should do it, and there's even a way they could still do it with Robert Downey Jr., but I doubt, because they're going to want to pay to see his face and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Is they should have gone a talented voice actor, whether that's a well-known name or not, They should have gotten a talented voice actor to be the voice of Doctor Doom. And then a stuntman, like a big tall guy, to be the body of Doctor Doom. So that, and because if they wanted to do like a quick flashback or a quick origin, we could see a guy, maybe like the stuntman or whatever, like a big handsome guy as Doctor Doom. Something happened to him, his face get distorted and so forth, and then he puts on the mask, and that's him for the rest of the time that we see Doctor Doom. And then the talented voice actor take over the role of performing Doctor Doom.
Yeah.
The same way they did with Ultron, but that he was CGI'd. Or the same way that they did with Silver Surfer in the second Fantastic Four movie. It was a body actor, and then Lawrence Fishburne was the voice of the Silver Surfer. Which they could even do that with Silver Surfer again. Same thing.
They could do the same Silver Surfer.
I mean,
I'm not opposed to it. Not one bit.
They've got all the Fox characters. Why not?
We saw him survive the blast in Galactus when he like went into the thing and like went. He lived.
That'd be sick. But I think my point is aside from, I mean, Doctor Doom most notably, but that's something that they could have done a long time ago. And even now with comic book characters. I mean, I know there was talks, like there was concepts and ideas about doing that with Bane in a Batman movie with Ben Affleck, of like doing a small, kind of like in Arkham Asylum, Bane being like small and decrepit and pressing a button and he becomes this big monster, you know? Like that's, I want to see that kind of creativity. Like, don't fixate so much on the limitations of an actor and their physical form.
Right.
Go beyond that. Do something. I mean, horror movies do it all the time. Alien, foreshadow, we're going to be talking about it in a little bit. Alien does a great job of that, of mixing practical, CGI, animatronics. There's never one outlet, you know, to perform a particular character.
Right.
They have guys in suits for interacting, or they'll have animatronics for like big shots of like it moving, or they'll have CGI for it doing crazy dynamic movements and stuff. What's stopping them from doing something similar or going in a similar field to execute comic book characters that way? And in every single movie, including the Alien franchise that Ridley Scott's involved with, he says that all the time. Practical is cheaper.
Yeah.
They can put more money into these movies in better ways by taking different, more creative routes like filmmakers are supposed to do.
Yeah.
They want more bang for their buck. They want the movie to do better. Then get creative with it. Make the movie earn it.
Right.
Essentially. But before we get to Alien, because I just mentioned we were going to get to Alien, who happens to be one of the many franchises from, you know, Disney purchasing Fox. There's one little quirky movie that came out just a little bit ago that we don't have a lot to say about, unfortunately. But I figured we would just squeeze in because it came out just like the other week. And that's The Crow.
Yes.
Not that there was any clean way to segue into that, but
you could have done something with Marvel, then Asgard, then Odin, then Raven, then Crow.
What the fuck, dude?
Well, think about it, because Deadpool is connected to the Void. The Void was seen in Loki. Loki's connected to Odin, and Odin...
Okay, but then I'd have to go on... Brandon, we're already at like an hour and 10 minutes now. I'm...
I'll do it right now.
Crow.
Deadpool. Void. Loki. Odin. Raven. Crow. Boom. Crow movie.
Different franchise. So a little bit of background. A little lottle.
A little lottle.
A lot of background.
Little high,
A
little
lot
low.
of background.
Little hey, little ho.
Little hey, little ho. What was I saying? Oh, so the Crow. So first off, I want to point out I did make a video about the announcement of the Crow a few months ago.
Yeah.
And while the comments weren't very friendly about it, as I didn't really expect them to be.
What?
The Crow movie, we were relatively young when we saw the original Crow with Brandon Lee.
Uh-huh.
And I just wanted to make that a point, that we understand the Crow, we understand the situation. And when...
I'm listening.
I know, I'm trying to collect my thoughts here. So, the new movie, I'm just going to come out really quick and just say, the new movie is a very different thing.
Yeah.
And I do want to preface, through the announcement, through the not the production, but through the announcement and through like the following months, I've like kept up following like the news on the director and any news that we could get out of the movie. And first off, I'm going to get so much hate for this. I'm going to defend the new movie a little bit, especially the director.
Okay.
Because I don't know if you've heard, since the reveal of this new movie, the director of the original Crow has been railing on the new movie, saying that it's like dishonorable, that it's a disgrace, and it like puts a bad taste on, or like it puts a stain on Brandon Lee's legacy and stuff like that. But I don't think that's true by any means. And as someone who's a fan of the Crow comic book, the Crow movie, Brandon Lee, I didn't get that at all.
Yeah, not one bit.
And also, the director of the new movie, I'm blanking on his name. I think it's Rupert Sanders. Yes, Rupert Sanders. Sorry. Has made it a point that like they're not rebooting the original movie. They're just making a new Crow movie based on the same source material.
Mm-hmm.
Like they're not okay. They almost did make like a rehashed version of the Crow with Brandon Lee. First, I think like Bradley Cooper's name was thrown out there before, and then for the longest time, Jason Momoa was going to be the Crow.
Which I just recently saw the pictures and videos that they took of him.
Yeah, there's pictures and there's videos of him having like the same hair. Sure, I'm sure it's probably like test shots and stuff, like just to see what it looks like. But he was wearing like the hair and he was wearing the same makeup as Brandon Lee. And there's a big chance that we would have gotten something even closer to the Brandon Lee version of the Crow. And I think if that came out, that would be worse. That would be, just trying to make money off of what Brandon Lee did. But also, let me remind people, there was like 1,000 movies That's an exaggeration, but there was like a handful of movies that came out following The Crow's success that were trying to do that. They were trying to make the money off of the excitement and, you know, the following of The Crow. But I didn't feel that watching this one. I felt like I was watching a new thing.
Yeah.
But with that out of the way, The Crow 2024, starring Bill Skarsgård, and I always blank on
woman's name that woman I've just never seen before in general.
I know it's FKA Twigs.
Damn, these comments are harsh.
Are you watching? Are you talking about my video?
Yeah. Okay, this person's a fucking idiot.
I even had a whole idea about a future episode where we would go into comments, especially of my videos, because there's some crazy shit.
I'm just gonna read this one comment of someone who doesn't know Google.
Oh, I know which one you're talking about.
From some dumbass, I'm not sure if I should read his name, states his name was Brandon Lee, not Brandon Bruce Lee. Come on, man. I grew up in 1994. I was a kid then. For me, it's a pass. Hey, you. How do you feel? I feel like a little worm on a big fucking hook. Well, boy, your mama must be damn proud of you. His name is Brandon Lee, not Brandon Bruce Lee. Seriously, man. Okay, James Boston, 3539, whatever your fucking name is. You're fucking dumb. Watch this. Google. Wrong keyboard. Brandon Bruce Lee. Wow. Brandon
Bruce is his middle name.
Look at that. In the Wikipedia, it's... Well, I know that's not a good source, but everyone fucking knows this. It says Brandon Bruce Lee, February 1st, 1965 through March 31st, 1993. Brandon Bruce Lee was an American actor. Brandon Bruce Lee. You're dumb. You're so dumb. Google. Google. I grew up in 1994. Yeah. And clearly, you're still as dumb as a bag of rocks. Fucking A, dude.
I think I said not all of that, but I said, like, I replied saying, like, you know, I was trying to be nice about it.
I'm going to reply
as much as I could.
Say, what?
And,
moron.
and I just said that it was as simple as, like, a Google search. But... Are you actually typing
I
that
am.
in?
I'm saying what a moron. ... Google it. 1994 my ass. Alright, sorry, I'm done.
So to get into the actual movie itself, it is the same story based on the comic book that I am
Fuck, what's his name?
blanking on names. James O'Barr. That he wrote. It's Eric Draven and Shelley, but it is very different.
Oh yeah.
It's a very different story. And it, by the way, again, Brandon Lee's movie is also very different from the comic book. It's not a rehash of the comic book.
It's
like there's
much
a lot of
closer than the new movie is.
Yeah, but it's also its own thing.
Yeah.
There's a lot of changes that they make for the movie as well.
If anything, they just
Like,
have small
including-
ties in the old movie, kind of like the new one. They have like some small ties to the old comic book. Brandon Bruce Lee did as well. Like it was small lines or little dialogues of just like very small things that kind of like tie in, like the whole like, is that gasoline I smell? And then like just very small things, or like the katana or characters' names. Like
yeah.
But yeah, it was still its own thing. but just a little
Right.
closer.
I mean, even as something as simple as like the face paint, like in the comic book, he does have face paint, but it's just the black tears.
yeah, or like the eye.
But
Like he doesn't have the eye in the Brandon Bruce Lee movie.
right. But they turned that into like to match the comic book more. They painted his face white,
Which they were also going to do with Jason Momoa.
That's true. But so this movie, it's the same. It is the story of Eric Draven, and his girlfriend Shelley being killed, tragically, and then him coming back to get revenge and to do good by like her spirit, so that they can rest peacefully, with a twist. This time around, but there's big changes, as you know. Like this time around, they met. So the biggest change, probably, to start off with, is we get a lot more. Some argue it's too much, and it's valid to say, depending on your perspective of it. But some people say it's too much of Eric and Shelley in the beginning of the movie. But I think this movie was really trying, on top of like trying to do its own thing, really trying to show the relationship that was, even though it's shortly lived, it was like a strong relationship that turned into a tragic story at the end. Whilst in like, because in the comic book, it's like a car ride.
Mm-hmm.
It's as small as like a car ride that goes wrong, and they end up getting ambushed and really bad things happen that I'm not going to say out loud. And then that's the end of their love story. But we get more of their love story through his pain and like flashbacks and memories and stuff like that. And even like reprints and edits and different versions of the story later, or that were published later, we get even more of their relationship. And in the original movie, it was like a quick montage of them doing a bunch of different things, and then some flashbacks and stuff. But this movie tries to really drive it in like a whole relationship in the beginning, like the first half of the movie, almost.
I'm kind of 50-50 because I know what they were aiming for when it came to the whole segment of them being together. One, I think I could have done it without their personal origin story, like their relationships beginning.
Right.
Like, I don't think you necessarily need the beginning of their love story in order to express their love for each other. I personally would, like, I think it would have just been as impactful if they sprinkled in bits and pieces of their relationship throughout the movie, instead of the whole first segment being their relationship, the tragic event, and then everything. I would have preferred it if, like, throughout the movie, he would say certain things to himself, or, like, rest or whatever, and, like, moments of their past together would pop up. Like, something as simple as just, like, no words, no nothing, but just the scene of them walking closer to each other in that big circle during the rehab practice thing.
Yeah.
If it was just that scene but no audio during like a dream sequence or something, or just like him reminiscing, I already have a whole cabinet of like information. They met each other during rehab. They both have had fucked up pasts that led them to this point, and they were brought together by unfortunate circumstances. Boom. I already get that from that scene. I got it from the trailer. Keep doing that throughout the movie with different chapters of their essentially perfect relationship, one that you would never let go of, and then it just makes it like that much more painful to know that it just wasn't gonna last.
Yeah. And so on top of that, like their relationship being kind of tackled differently in this movie, there's a plethora of different things that they do. Some of which, so another big thing that a lot of fans of the original think. Okay, let me reword that. They miss out on essentially the aesthetic and like the grim look of the original movie, because like they did the city differently, similar to like how the old Batman movies were, where like the city was kind of turned into like a character itself, and it had its like, it was stylized, it was shot in a particular way, so that like it seemed almost comic booky or like gothic of sorts. And they say that they missed out kind of on that, and that's something that this movie doesn't do. But this movie was shot in Prague, if I'm correct, and I feel like Prague, and I personally think it shows in the movie itself, is like gothic. It's for it being a modern day movie, Prague is a very gothic looking city. And it doesn't look like a typical city. It doesn't look like something, we visited different cities from time to time, and none of them look like that. And so yeah, that's just a quick little detail. But some other things that they changed, like they changed the bad guys this time around. Instead of it being like a gang, they made it to where the bad guys were people who, how did he describe it? They've made deals with the devil, so that they could have like eternal life.
Well, one guy made a deal with the devil.
And he grants that to everyone else, or to the people who like sacrifice a soul for him. Did I catch that right? It's along those lines. Like
so he got eternal life from sacrificing innocent people and having other people sacrifice innocent people, and in return they get what they asked for. So like the mom, spoiler alert, the mom of Shelley, she gains, despite the wealth she already fucking had, she gets more.
Yeah.
And then she states that it wasn't worth it because she doesn't have her kid.
Right.
But other people, it's the same situation. They gained wealth, they gained whatever because they worked for this guy.
Right. And a point that I was going to make is that what I think is interesting is that even though the Crow comic books go, like, all of the different hosts and all of the different people who have, like, been touched by this gift of sorts, or, like, this situation, in the comic books, they do touch upon a lot of different types of supernatural stuff. But in, like, the original movies, I think with the exception of one, but I haven't seen all of the old movies, and especially the original movie, they don't really have other aspects of supernatural stuff other than the Crow.
Yeah.
Like the main character. And what's interesting about this movie is that they make the Crow seem like it's not the only thing that's supernatural. Like it's something dark that exists in this world of dark, supernatural, almost demonic stuff. To kind of like flush out the world of the Crow a little bit. Also, and the movie kind of indicates a little bit too that like he's not the first person, kind of, or like it's happened before, because they touch upon the idea that like, he used a particular word, like he said he's been, I can't remember how he phrased it, but the antagonist of the movie like made a phone call and he says this man has been touched by like the ability to of like ever life or something like that, like as if he was familiar with it, kind of.
Right.
And it kind of opens up the possibility that maybe we'll see a crow somewhere later down the line.
Yeah.
If at all. I mean, I don't think we're going to see another crow movie anytime soon. But I think it's possible. Like, I don't think this is the last of the crow. I mean, it is for Eric Draven. I don't think we're going to see him.
Yeah.
And I mean, for good reason all around, whether narratively or on fan base. But I think that's potential to rather dive into another one from the comic books. Then there's a novel of the Crow, which one of the old movies is based on. Or they could just take this as an opportunity to write something new.
Yeah.
And a new version of the Crow.
So that's something that I kind of had a weird issue with this movie. Is I know, like you said before, it's not the same movie as Brandon Bruce Lee's, but it's taken from the same source material. I think I would have liked the movie a little bit more if it wasn't Eric Draven.
If it wasn't.
I don't know why.
I agree.
I don't know why, but something would have made it seem a little bit more interesting if it was someone completely different. And you could rather use the argument that it's a sequel to all the ones from before, like all those older movies, or just throwing out the fact to people who aren't familiar with The Crow that it's not just one guy, that there are tons of different people who go through the same thing. And for those people who were like, oh, it's a disgrace to Brandon Bruce Lee and whatever, maybe it would help just a little bit more with that stupid fucking argument that it's, it's not Eric Draven, it's not Shelley, so it's better, I guess. And it gives you more freedom. Like, when you don't restrict your writing and your creativity to one version of something, you have more freedom. Like, I'm currently writing. I'm in the beginning stages of it, but I'm currently writing like a fan-made story of The Crow.
Yeah.
And it has nothing to do with Eric Draven or Shelley.
Well, yeah.
Or anything.
And it shouldn't.
No, but it makes it that much more exciting because it's fresh, it's new. You could do almost anything with it. And I think that's why this new one would have been just that much better if it wasn't Eric Draven.
Yeah, and I agree. I even would have been. I think I've said this before too. I would have even been okay if they did the movie pretty close to like how they did it, even with all of the references to Eric Draven's story, like the horse and the barbed wire, and like the guy at the train station who is kind of reminiscent of like the skeleton cowboy from the original comic book. All of that stuff, I still would have been okay with that in this movie, even if it wasn't Eric Draven, because it still kind of like references to the comic book, to be like kind of like the director telling the audience like, I still know the source material,
Right.
And the old movie didn't use any of this. I still would have been okay with that. But I agree. I feel like it could have been an opportunity for a new character, especially based on how the movie ends, which is what I was going to get to next, because we are doing spoilers. Probably the biggest change to the movie is the ending. Because this time around, throughout the movie, there's a point where Eric starts to lose his powers.
Mm-hmm.
And it's because he finds out that Shelley was kind of like enticed through the magic of like the bad guy to kill someone.
Mm-hmm.
And he starts to like doubt her.
Right.
And because of his doubt, it kind of like makes him lose some love for her in a way, or at least that's how the man at the railway station takes it, and the power starts to go away. And then he really declares his love by telling him, my soul for hers, like I'll send my soul to hell for eternity as long as she can come back and live her life.
Right.
And while it wasn't ideal, because I think you even mentioned that like the way that they died wasn't as impactful as like it is in the comic book or in the original movie, but I think it's to sell that ending. Mm-hmm. Because like in the ending, for her to come back to life, which she does, he sends his soul to the afterlife, they have a little bit of a moment, and then she comes to the land of the living again, being revived by like EMTs, and one of them being the man from the train station. The narrative and the voiceover even says that she's gonna live on her life with the love of Eric and stuff like that, which I think is interesting. And it, for people who have seen the original movie or know about the story of the Crow, it's, you know, it's kind of a twist or like a plot twist for them at the end of the movie, so that they didn't really see what was coming. Mm-hmm. And I'm not totally against it. But again, if it wasn't Eric and Shelley, I feel like that ending could have been stronger, with the simple fact that they were different people.
Yeah.
Because I kind of, with Eric, I kind of want the comic book and the original movie ending with him crawling back to his grave alongside Shelley and resting peacefully.
Right.
Knowing that their spirits go to heaven instead of hell.
Yeah.
So. But other than that, like you and I said, talking about it after watching the movie, there's not a whole lot to say. It's to quote a director that I'm going to be talking very fond of here in a little bit, is I hope you really enjoy this movie, and if not, I hope you fucking hate it. Because to critics and to audiences, if it lands right down the middle, it means that it's going to be forgotten and no one's going to talk about it in the next 20 years. And unfortunately, I don't think this movie's going to be talked about in the next 20 years.
Yeah.
Which sucks, because I don't know about you, the trailer to this movie
I
kick ass.
was so fucking
And
excited for this movie.
It made me want to like paint my face with black makeup and fuck shit up.
Dude,
there's something about their version of Post Malone and Ozzy Osbourne's song that was just looping in my head
had
24/7.
Such like great potential to be like, I know what I would have done differently for the movie to make it rather a 9 out of 10 or possibly a 10 out of 10. They're just small things. Because I really liked when he was fighting people. I really liked it. It was bloody. Yeah. It was fucked up. It was awesome. But like the times in between, or like the ending, like, and I don't mean the ending that you were talking about, but the ending, like the fucking boss fight, sucked.
Oh, yeah.
It was so like they talked, and then they jumped through glass, And then it was essentially it. It was done. It was so mediocre and dry. Like it like if it was a video game and you get to the last boss fight and you're like, fuck, I'm like ready, let's go, let's kick some ass, and you like press X and the game's over.
Yeah, like it's a quick time event.
Yeah. That's what that was. It was the whole game went from like normal to hard difficulty, and the last mission was easy to story mode.
Yeah. That I agree that it was definitely a weak point.
And some people might think I'm nuts for saying this. I don't blame them. I would have made the tragedy a lot more fucked up.
Well, yeah, that's kind of what I was saying earlier about their death in the movie.
It was
kind of underwhelming.
It was underwhelming. It was quick. And like it's not like I wish these things upon innocent people or anything like that, but like even though you don't witness it the same way you do in the new one, like the old movie, they like showed flashbacks of like bits and pieces of it, and they like hint on what happens. And
Brandon, do you like seeing couples murdered?
Fuck. No, it's not that I like seeing couples murdered or anything. It's just I feel like for how like strong this love is.
Mm-hmm.
Like I know they're only humans, so it's like it's realistically easy to kill them, but like for how strong their love was for each other, and how like, especially compared to the older versions of the story, how quickly they died. And like yes, they witnessed each other die, but and I know it would probably be different if I was in. Like, if I became a crow through the same situation. But, like, yes, I would, like, come back to life and be mad and be like, oh, I want revenge. But if the death was fucked up, and it's, like, something that is, like, gut-wrenching and is embedded into your brain, when you come back from the dead, you're not just coming back from, like, for revenge. You're coming back for guts and bone. Like you're gonna fuck people up. Like honestly, and it's weird combining these two things, but a Crow movie should be like a more supernatural version of I Spit on Your Grave.
Yeah.
Like and I know that Brandon Bruce Lee's version wasn't as gnarly as what I'm going for, but
yeah.
Could you imagine if like he remembered the specific faces of certain people who completely destroyed his world, and he went after them and he killed them in very special ways?
It sounds a lot like what what was his name? Joseph Wick and his cat.
Yeah. Yes.
John Wick.
Yeah, no, I know. But that's the thing is like even with John Wick, like he's like an assassin and he came back hard, but it was like it's like strategic, and he's like skilled, and he used like planning and guns and all this stuff. But like Eric Draven isn't an assassin. He's not like a killer. But he comes back as one. And for someone who's like, you took away the love of my life, the woman who made me from this piece of shit to like a human being who looks forward to living and loving, you took that away from me. I'm going to take something away from you. And then he like,
it's your balls.
Yeah. And like like when I saw the trailer and he saw the black guy in the car, And the guy's like, oh, I killed you. And he's like, you did. I was looking forward to that scene being way different. Yeah. I thought he was going to, like, force the guy to drive somewhere and he was going to, like, fuck him up. But instead, he gets in the car and then, like, just because the...
Shoots him in the back of the head.
Yeah, he, like, panics and he's like, ah! And then he, like, shoots him. No.
Just like that?
Even if you wanted to keep it in that moment, what he could have done was, like, he just didn't know what to do with his hands, and he kind of just went in, like, a berserker rage, and he grabbed the guy from behind, like, from the back seat, and kind of just, like, squeezed his face in. I don't know. Anything. Mm-hmm. Especially for that whole sequence when he kills all those guards. We know the movie could have been way more brutal. Yeah. I would have done the whole, like, hanging the guy up, cutting him 100 times, and then covering his wounds and shit, kind of. Gnarly.
You heard it here, folks. You actually didn't know. There's a serial killer that's been going around hanging people and smearing shit on them.
That's from I
just got a confession from him.
No, that's from I Spit on Your Grave 2 or 3.
They don't know that.
They do now. That's what I'm saying, though.
I actually recommended in my Halloween video that they don't go watch that movie.
I know, but if they want to understand what I'm talking about as far as, like, revenge...
Please don't go watch that movie.
Don't go watch it, but, like, you can, like, get a good understanding, or I could just tell you, like, she doesn't just, like, shoot them.
Yeah, but... I don't know. I think you're still talking about, like, the second or third movie, because the first one was not what you and Mom described to me at all. It's not. It's like an hour and a half of one scene. And it's the cause of everything.
No, I know. But the future movies, I forgot how many there were. But in one of them...
I think there's...
She plans out and has very specific deaths for each guy.
Yeah,
and it's brutal.
But regardless,
like squishing their nuts, or like hanging them and cutting them 100 times, and then filling it with shit.
Anyways. So in all, I did want to just point out a couple cool things about the movie. Just a couple little things. Aside from that whole opera sequence at the end, which essentially is the entirety of the trailer, it's a sick ass fight scene.
It's awesome. So much blood.
But
oh my god.
I was watching an interview with Rupert Sanders, the director, and he was pointing out just a couple cool details of the movie. One of which being that the opera that's going on during that sequence is a French opera that's referred to as like Diablo or El Diablo, or I know that's technically not. It's something Diablo. Even though it's French. But it's a French opera that kind of is about a tragic love story that like separates these two through supernatural and tragic means and stuff like that. So it's just interesting. And also aesthetically, like when you see the opera going on, like the makeup that they have on, it's just interesting to see that very gothic, put together, coordinated opera. That's a real opera. That's telling a similar story that's going on in the movie. And also, I didn't pick up on this, but the trench coat he's wearing in the movie is actually inside out. When he's wearing it when he's with Shelly and she's like hugging him and then they're like kissing through a curtain or whatever, it's the way it's supposed to be, and he takes it off clumsily and he throws it on a chair, and then when he comes back to it after he's come back to life, he just grabs it as it is and he puts it on, allegedly because it feels like she's holding on to him, so it's inside out. And that's the look that you see in the posters and stuff. So I thought that was kind of cool.
I did not know that.
Well, now you do.
Now I do.
Now if anyone's like, whoa, his trench coat looks weird, dude, you'll be like, it's inside out, dumbass.
How'd you not know?
Dumb, dude. So yeah, just a couple little interesting things. But in all, what do you give the movie out of 10?
That one I give a 7 out of 10. Because I personally did like the movie.
Yeah.
It's weird. I know I could technically go down to 6, but I feel like anything below 7 is insulting, which is weird, because technically that's not how that works. But I give it a 7 because I did like the movie overall. And there were things that I would have altered, but then there were like 1 or 2 things that I would have I did not like at all.
Yeah.
And despite what people think, I don't think I would have minded the Jason Momoa version.
I would have.
I like both ideas, but for different reasons, so it's really hard to say.
For the reasons people are mad at this movie, I would have been mad at with the Jason Momoa one. Not to say that Jason Momoa can't play a good version of the Crow, but if they were to really rehash the Eric Draven story similar to the original movie, I would have been frustrated. I personally give the movie, for the reasons that we said, I am going to go down to a 6.5. Only because, not to insult the movie, but only because, aside from the transition between their love story to Shelley being killed and then him becoming the Crow, that middle segment's kind of a drag. But my biggest overall complaint is kind of, you touched upon it a little bit earlier, but Bill Skarsgård, or at least maybe it's just the way it's written, he doesn't super sell the fact that he's like mourning over Shelley and that he's like rageful about it throughout the movie.
Yeah.
He just kind of seems like someone who's pissed off and he wants her to come back.
Which is kind of a shock because he's like delivered every role he's been in so far.
He's a phenomenal actor.
Yeah, I thought this movie would have been a breeze for him, but rather he wasn't given the proper direction, or he doesn't truly understand what the original writer of The Crow was aiming for someone who's coming back from the dead to avenge their loved one. Also, I don't know why, but I kind of found it weird how, because like throughout the Crow movie with Brandon Bruce Lee, he looks the way he looks throughout the whole movie. Like from the moment he like comes back, he puts on the makeup and he looks the same way. It was kind of weird seeing Eric Draven come back to life in the new one and still look like he'd never died.
Yeah, like he doesn't get that look.
He doesn't look like I would have made it to where he was a little more pale and like had like black under his eyes, like as if he was like dead.
Gotcha.
Like I thought it would have been like, also imagine like being that guy who's in the car and like, oh, I killed you, and looking up at him, it kind of just looked like, oh, maybe he went to the hospital and he never really died and he like recovered quickly. But like if he walked up and he looked like a walking corpse, that would have been like terrifying.
Yeah, because he doesn't even really get the Crow, like the eye makeup. Oh, you brought up how the original movie was like closer to the source material and stuff, which is true
degree, yeah.
But there was a lot of really cool nods to the comic books.
There was that the original movie.
I did point out, right, and I did point out a couple already, like the horse and the barbed wire and the man at the railroad, so on and so forth. But they also did like some of the really little stuff, like him tattooing himself, which was a little bit more gruesome in the comic book because he's going at it really aggressively and he's like bleeding all over the place and uses his blood to draw Cat in the Hat on the wall and stuff like that. But he does tattoo himself, the horse and the barbed wire. You know, like all the katana, they did the katana a little different. Like they made it to where it was like his kind of for at least the last portion of the movie, whereas the katana in the original movie was the bad guy's and he took it from the bad guy.
Yeah.
Regardless, so yeah, that was The Crow. It's unfortunately not going to be something that's going to occupy too much real estate up in my brain for too long. I would like to see Lionsgate or whoever wants to try to take a crack at The Crow do something new with it, with a new character, new story. I honestly don't even care about the ones that are in the comic books after Eric Draven. I want to just see something new.
They can hire me and I'll do my version of The Crow.
Sure. Like something. I'd really like to see someone just be like, all right, with this premise, with this logic, let's come up with a new, dark, really intense, like pull out your heartstrings kind of story.
Lionsgate, hire me. I'll deliver. I promise.
Do my movie, sir. But now that that's out of the way, I do want to take like a quick break. You know, it's not like we have a sponsor. This is our first video. This is a small channel that's coming from makers of two small channels. Like really small channels. Yeah. And I don't know if the video that I'm making at the moment is going to come out before this one or if this one's going to come out first, but I said in my video that you know, this podcast is kind of like a blend of our two channels because like I already talk about this kind of stuff and you play like games and there like even in some of your gameplays like you'll be talking about like particular details and like narrative related stuff. So this is kind of like our way of bringing like those two, like our ideas and stuff together without a script, without rehearsing stuff, to just like bring in some topics, bring in some news, bring in some ideas, and just talk about it. Because sometimes scripting stuff is exhausting.
Yeah. And
sometimes I'll write stuff and I'm like, this is fucking killer, dude. And nothing happens.
Yeah.
So this is kind of like my way of saying to talk about the sponsor of today's video. It's us. We're sponsoring our own podcast. This is ours. It's going to start at YouTube. And then once we can get it going, we can do our own channels more consistently. We can do this more consistently. It will go onto other platforms. So if you're someone who listens on like to podcasts on other platforms and you're just here for the time being, we appreciate you being here if you've watched this long. And we will make this better as time goes on with you guys. So bear with us. Sit back. If you're still listening, we've got one more thing to talk about. And that thing is Alien Romulus.
Yeah.
Boy, oh boy, was this probably my highlight of this year so far. Yes, Deadpool and Wolverine was a big thing. But my big thing was Alien Romulus.
My big thing was having a kid. I'm just kidding.
You did. I did mean in terms of the context of this conversation.
I was kidding.
Yeah. Pop culture releases. Alien Romulus, directed by Fede Alvarez. released by Disney, kind of, because it's a Fox franchise and Disney bought Fox.
Yeah.
And Disney has Alien now, and Aliens
Marvel writes Alien comic books.
Yeah, they're in the Marvel continuity.
Miles Morales got hugged by a face hugger.
Yeah, it's Peter Parker Spider-Man just had like a white suit that has like a face hugger shaped Spider-Man. Oh, never mind. That's Miles Morales. That's crazy as. But Alien Romulus was awesome. It had a crazy release. It had fresh Rotten Tomatoes right out the gate. I did see that it was a little bit more divisive amongst the audience as time went on. Because some of the things in the movie, and we're just going to go right into spoilers because I want to talk about this movie. There was things like callbacks to old movies. Some people argue that there was too many callbacks to the old movies. In this movie wasn't enough of its own thing at some points. I personally, I loved it all. I loved the direction of this movie, most importantly. Fede Alvarez is awesome with horror. He knows how to make like the right decision in going gruesome with horror movies. Mm-hmm. He's talked about it before in press and interviews and stuff like that, that you know, when he pitches an idea, or that when he brings something up and like the producers are like, do we have to do this? He's like, well, now I do. Now I have to do it. You know, because you're telling me no, I'm going to do it. It means that it's going to be in this movie. Which proves, or sorry, wrong word. It shows in a lot of this movie. From things of like the cocoon that the alien grows into, looks like a particular female body part. There's a.
We're all big kids here. Just say it. I'm just kidding.
I'm not going to.
It looks like a booby.
But no,
I know.
It doesn't.
No, it doesn't.
What?
I just said no, it doesn't.
The Offspring. We're gonna talk about the Offspring at the end of this movie.
Did you say spoiler alerts already?
Oh, yeah, okay. Yeah. I said we're talking about this movie. The movie, as everyone knows, everyone said it already. Everyone has gone through this. The movie takes place in between the first two original Alien movies, Alien 1979 and Aliens 1986. The first directed by Ridley Scott, who produced this movie. Aliens directed by James Cameron, who had a voice in kind of like cheering Fede Alvarez on in this movie because they met through I'm blanking on his name, the guy who starred in Don't Breathe and Don't Breathe 2. And happened to be in the two Avatar movies. The movie takes or is in the perspective of Rain and her brother Andy. And they have her brother Andy being synthetic. Not really her brother. Yeah, he's a synthetic. He's an Andy model, apparently. He dug out of the trash by her parents and reprogrammed so that he would be, her guardian, essentially, through her life. She tries to... Essentially, the big selling point of her trying to, she's trying to leave. She's trying to go to Yavaga, which is a beautiful planet, beautiful colony and stuff. And she's gotten all of her credits that she was told she needed to leave, and they ended up just doubling it, pretty much proving that Weyland-Yutani does not give a flying fuck about the people who work for them and they were like, you're going to work till the day you die, which ended up happening to her parents and some of the parents of the other members that, you know, they end up meeting up with that they know personally. So coincidentally, at that very moment, she gets a call from Kyle, something like that. Very, very guy name. I'm going to just pull up some of the cast of Alien Romulus. I'm pretty sure his name is... Sorry, everyone. Quick little research here. Tyler. I kind of had it right. Tyler, who's brothers with Kay, cousins to Bjorn. Bjorn is dating Navarro. So there's a whole cast, a whole group of young adults who are trying to leave. And their idea to do that is to go to a drifting research station of Weyland-Yutani that is floating above their planet to get fuel for their cryopods and then travel to Ivaga themselves. Right. Which obviously goes bad because then we find that this research station had captured the xenomorph, or Big Chap, depending on who you ask, from the original Alien movie, and tried to do research on him and successfully backwards engineered the black goo introduced in Prometheus. Right. And they created face huggers, which seem to be of their own design. These face huggers look a little different. They have little spikes on their fingers. They're darker than a typical face hugger. Because face huggers are usually like a pale yellow skin color. Kind of like skin that's like jaundice.
Right.
But in this movie, they're dark. They're like a darker grayish brown color with like yellowish fingertips. And yeah, and we get, what is the... But anyways, we're given a bunch of exposition and a little bit of background by another synthetic that died, or that was dismembered on this ship, referred to as Romulus and Remus, as two halves. The two halves referring to the mythological founders of Rome, two twin brothers. And this is one of the divisive things about this movie, is the synthetic, who went by the name Rook, but is a science officer who happened to be the same model as Ash from Alien. And the voice was a different person. I believe the voice was Daniel Betts. Is that him? I'll double check that in a little bit. But it's voiced by a different person. But the face, it's an animatronic with a deep fake of Ian Holmes, who tragically passed away in 2020, I believe, right around the time that this movie, or right before this movie started filming. But that's the divisive thing, is that they tried to use his likeness for this movie. But Fede Alvarez did make it a point that before they started filming this movie, he got permission from Ian Holmes' family to use his likeness for this movie. And they were okay with it. And that's all that matters.
Right.
To me, at least. I think if he did the right thing, if he went to the family first, then that should be it. That should be the end of the conversation. If they said it's okay, it's okay. Right. Obviously, if the tables were turned and he didn't ask and he did it anyway, or if they said no and he did it anyway, that's different. But, you know, that's not how it played out. Anyways, so that's pretty much the premise of the movie. It ends up playing out just like any other Alien movie. Before we go further, any initial thoughts?
I really liked Alien Romulus. Um, it was disturbing, suspenseful. They really emphasized on like certain noises that aren't usually as loud as they are, but um, Alvarez is really good with horror in general. I mean, he made the remake of Evil Dead, which I love a lot. I don't really know people's opinions about the 2013 Evil Dead, but I don't really care because I like it. Um, I liked Don't Breathe. I haven't seen the second one, but I like everything he does. He really knows how to make things like. He really knows how to make fucked up movies.
He did the girl in the spider's web, which is that the name of that movie?
The Girl in the Spider's Web. I still haven't seen that one.
Oh, I thought we saw that movie together, but I really enjoyed that movie. Yeah, The Girl in the Spider's Web, 2018. That was also a good movie.
Yeah, but I like his stuff, and I was excited at the fact that he was making this one. And I won't lie though. I might not give it as high of a rating as you will.
Okay.
Because I'm assuming you're giving it like a 9. Or a 10?
Yeah.
No, 9?
Probably, yeah, 9.
Yeah, I give it like 8.
It's not bad.
It's not. It was a good movie.
It's disgusting.
But no, it was a good movie. I highly recommend it, especially for Alien fans and for the people who like, especially the first one. Like I rewatched recently, like within the span of 2 weeks, I rewatched Prometheus, Alien Covenant, Aliens, Alien 3, and especially for people who really like the first one, they would love this movie. For people who like Alien in general, they would love this movie. There's so much to love about it. And it's not like an action type movie. Like there are like scenes where a lot's happening, but it's not an action movie. It's very suspenseful, very creepy. They really dive into some of the more traditional themes of Alien that not a lot of people might be aware of. Like the whole theme and relation with like motherhood. And they also like really dive, especially with like Alvarez creating, as you were saying, like the pod that the alien grows in was very like H.R. Geiger. Like they brought a lot of that. I mean, back, that's like which was nice.
Right, and I think he as a fan of the franchise, like he really understood like the undertones and the themes that like Ridley Scott originally dove into when partnering with H.R. Geiger or Giger, depending on how you pronounce his name, because that artist has a lot of that in his work. It's like sexual undertones and themes of motherhood.
The perfect representation of his artwork is Scorn, the game. It has a lot of the design.
I mean, I would say Alien.
Well, yeah, of course, but I'm just saying, like, for like a really good representation, especially for people who aren't familiar with H.R. Geiger, is like the game Scorn, because it covers his art style immediately. It touches upon the very disturbing aspects of some of the artwork. It covers the sexual undertones that H.R. Geiger's art portrays, and it doesn't sugarcoat any of it, which I think this movie Alien Romulus did as well, especially when it came to the offspring.
Right, which is what I was going to point out is like on the note of motherhood. It's revealed in the beginning of the movie that Isabel Merced's character Kay is pregnant with an unknown, not relevant father. Mm-hmm. And when she ends up getting attacked and encased onto a wall by a xenomorph, and she's freed by Rain, Andy, and her brother Tyler, Andy suggests using the black goo to heal her because it kind of worked on a rat, but they didn't see that.
But the rat turned
that it was mutated and it like died through its mutations, which she ends up taking anyway. Like there's a bunch of stuff that happens, but she ends up taking it anyway, and her fetus turns into this egg, which hatches and turns into the offspring, which is this big, kind of like a blend between an engineer from Prometheus and a xenomorph, because he's tall, he's got the pale, almost translucent type porcelain skin of an engineer, but he's got like the silver teeth, the bony structure, the tubes on his back, a tail that we see grow. That shit was gross.
Yeah.
But he even goes back to Kay, his mother, to feast a way that a baby would, because she's producing black goo. And it's really gross. Yeah. But if anyone could do it, Fede Alvarez could do it. And he killed it.
Yeah.
Literally and figuratively. Because...
You know what? Something that I look for a lot when it comes to horror movies, especially new horror movies, are jump scares.
Mm-hmm.
Because a lot of jump scares, and I'm not going to say when it is, but there's one jump scare in the whole movie you don't see coming at all. And it made me freak out.
I saw it twice. The second time I saw it was with you, and I still jumped from that.
Because it literally...
A part of me was like waiting for it to come, and then it's almost like I was counting the seconds in my head, but I got the count wrong. And I was like,
no, but like, because in all movies nowadays, they tell you when the jump scare is going to happen. Like a person looks somewhere.
Right, through like music
and then
like
they'll
sound
look
beats
somewhere else.
Stuff.
And then they'll look back. And then they'll look back again and then jump scare. Like, it's just building up to something we already know. But this jump scare, it's like, nope, no signs, no nothing. If anything, you feel like things are actually getting better for the characters, and you're like, oh, okay, cool. Abba!
Yeah, it's kind of similar to like Dead Space almost. Like, it gives you like this sense of safety until all of a sudden... You're just
and I look for that. So I
wrong.
Crave that. I crave that feeling of like jumping out of my chair or like grabbing it and just like having like a mini heart attack. I crave that in horror movies. And I never get it. Ever. All horror movies now suck. And the only time I enjoy them, like horror movies, are when they're like gore fests. Like the new Evil Dead Rise that came out. I loved how brutal it was. But that's not the kind of horror that I'm always looking for. Like, I like gore fest movies. But when it comes to, like, a movie that's supposed to be scary, like, yes, suspense is nice, but I want a jump scare that gives me a heart attack. Like, I'm craving the day when an ambulance gets called to the movie theater because I literally have a heart attack. I will be in the hospital and be like, worth it.
So even though it contradicts a video, I'm just plugging all of my videos today. I did make a video on horror movies and jump scares and stuff, and I said that jump scares were like the death of horror movies. But in this case, not just for bias reasons, in this case where like we're talking about like jump scares done right, You're given that sense of security. You're not being told when the jump scare is coming. There's no audio cues. There's no... It's unexpected. Like, the reason you're scared, the reason that you get startled is because it's frightening, and all sense of hope and security
Not
is
only
gone.
that, but like during that scene, you're so hyper focused on like so many different scenarios. Like, oh, this could happen to the person. Oh, this could happen, or you're sucked into the scenery. Like whatever it is, you're thinking of all these things, and the last thing that you could possibly be thinking of is what's actually gonna happen, and that's what a jump scare should be. Is you thinking of every single scenario but the jump scare. And then boom. And then soiled pants.
Shat myself? Question mark.
You soiled yourself while you were sleeping, Mr. Wilson. Oh, I wasn't sleeping.
Sorry, I was letting a loud vehicle go by. I just lost all train of thought. But you know, the movie, for people who are like dissing on the movie, because I've seen it, there are people who think that this movie's not up to par with the quality of Alien. All I have to say is, shut the fuck up. Because when Prometheus came out, people were so freaking mad that they were given answers to things that they didn't ask for, or they were saying that it was too different from the Alien franchise, or they were saying that it didn't make any sense. And then Alien Romulus, or Alien Covenant, came out and went back to like started leaning back to the Alien formula a little bit, but with touches and pieces of Prometheus to go off of. And people were like, oh, but now it's like it's too close to Alien, but it's got all the things that we don't like from Prometheus. And then years later, those movies came out. Alien Covenant came out, what, 2015?
Alien Covenant?
No.
That came out in like 2021 or 2022.
Alien Covenant came out 2017.
What?
Yeah.
I thought we were living together
Anyways,
when that movie came out.
No. We watched it when we had that apartment. But anyway.
Weird.
But now it's like years later, 7 years later, and I've listened to podcasts and reviews and stuff that are saying, oh, Prometheus and Alien Covenant were actually like revolutionary and amazing storytelling, but no one wanted to point that out. We did. I know when we watched those movies, we enjoyed them for as different as they were too. And I remember being super excited when the deacon like spilled out of the engineer.
I was gonna bring that up. So I'm not gonna lie. When Prometheus came out and we watched it for the first time, I wasn't as educated on aliens as I am now. Mm-hmm. And I remember watching the whole movie, having no idea that it was an alien movie. And then the deacon came out, I'm like,
it's an alien movie.
Oh, that's what this shit is? And for the longest time, I thought the deacon was the queen alien. But for like very like...
Yeah.
I feel like very fair reason. Like the first time you see a queen alien, like a queen xenomorph, her mouth comes like out of the faceplate.
That's what I was going to point out. Like, I thought that's kind of what it was. Like, maybe the deacon's head was kind of like a shell, or what grew into the shell. And then, like, the thing that came out after was, like, the actual head. But the deacon ended up being its own thing. And then, like, there was, like, small complaints about... And you even pointed out when you were rewatching Prometheus and Alien Covenant... that like the technology looks different between the generations, which is true. Like they were trying to bring like a new look to it, but if you watch like the behind the scenes and stuff like that, their explanation for it is that, you know, in the original movie, it's like it's a mining ship, and you know, mining ship would have like rugged, more sturdy, more durable looking, and like not as fancy technology.
Very outdated
while
technology
you look at
compared to their time.
Yeah. And then you look at a science exploration ship like the one in Prometheus, and they get all the new fancy stuff. And because Waylon himself was on the ship, you know, it's his ship, and like he gets all of like the nice stuff, and you know, all of his personal money going into the project and stuff. And then Alien Covenant's kind of like a middle ground, because while the inside of the ship's really dark, they do have a lot of more advanced stuff, because it's a colony ship. They're taking the human race to an extent to another planet to create a new colony. So they need all of the technology that they need. Which I think makes sense, because like same thing. If you look at, you know, a phone that's made now, and you compare it to like a drill for construction, they look very different, but they're made in the same time. But one's materials and its purpose makes it look different than the other. Right. And I know that's like a strange comparison, but it, at least in my mind, it makes sense.
Does. And same thing goes for Romulus too, is because Romulus takes place on a mining planet, or the beginning portion does.
And even the technology looks different too, because when they get onto the ship and they even walk through like the lab is really bright, and it has like sleek materials and fancier equipment.
Right,
and stuff.
And then you compare it to the ship that,
and then like the terminals.
Yeah, you compare it to the ship that they used to get there, or the technology back on the mining planet, and it's very outdated,
it's like rugged.
And,
right.
So yeah, it makes sense. Once again, fans just finding something to complain about that has explanation, fair explanation.
But I feel like we have this conversation all the time too, where like we enjoy something, or maybe like we give something the benefit of the doubt, and everyone else is like, bleh.
Or there's like,
this movie sucks, like, and then like years later, when something, a follow-up to it comes out worse or something like that, they're like, oh, this thing was so ahead of its time back in the day. And then we're like, well, where the fuck were all of you guys?
Yeah, I can't tell you how many movies it's gone both ways. There's been movies that I really liked, and people are like shitting on it, and like now they're like, oh, this is a great movie for these reasons. It's like, okay, you're the exact same person who said otherwise like 10 years ago. And then there are some movies that people deemed were fucking amazing when it came out, and I was like, this is like hog shit. And now they're like, oh yeah, that movie wasn't that great.
Right.
It's like, okay, Mr. Bandwagon.
Yeah, and you know what? I have an idea. You know, I mean, we still have more to talk about, but assignment for the next video that we do for like the official episode 1, because like we'll call this pilot episode. For like episode 1, the topic's gonna be movies, or maybe like games if you want to throw any games in there, but like releases that, you know, we rather enjoyed or didn't like, or like stuff we have different opinions about. You know, because I know we talk about that pretty often, like things that we have particular opinions about that for some reason everyone else is like on the other end of the spectrum.
Yeah, agree.
Does that make sense? So essentially, any movie or game that like you really enjoy or you really don't and everyone else just seems to love.
I'll look for movies. I think we could do a whole video just on movies, and we could do like another video on games.
Okay.
Because even this video, we talked about 3 movies, and we've been recording for
2.5 hours.
Yeah. So, yeah, we could do a whole. I already am thinking of like 3 movies on the top of my head that we could talk about.
Okay.
So, and in counting.
But back to Alien Romulus. I mean, dang, I don't know. I mean, because you know this. I'm not trying to like boast or anything, but as the years have gone by, I've become very educated on the Alien universe. I'm a big fan of Ridley Scott. And so as a major fan of the Alien franchise, as someone who enjoyed the prequels, even more so than an Alien movie that everyone really loves, that I don't care for too much. Maybe I'll save it for next video.
Oh, I'm curious.
I'll save it for the next video. You can keep me to that. I'll let you know which one. I'm not trying to get canceled after the first video, but yeah, I think Alien Romulus was a strong comeback for the franchise. I hope to see a lot more. I don't want them to do what they did with the Alien franchise before and them constantly trying to grind out new stuff and the quality go down, you know, like the MCU, like we just talked about a little bit ago. But I do want to see more Alien. I don't want to see another AVP. I know Fede Alvarez said he would do a movie with the guy who did Prey. Like, he would direct one half and the other director do another half. But I'm glad it was kind of a joke. I just want Alien to be its own thing. I want Predator to be its own thing. That might be divisive.
It's hard to say, though, because in main continuity of, and I'm not saying movies, strictly like just the lore of Yacha and Xenomorph, they do exist in the same universe now.
See, but that is and isn't true. Because if you ask... No, let me finish. If you ask Fox, the canon is Alien through Alien Resurrection and the prequel movies. And they don't say the comic books or AVP. And they say Alien Isolation is part of the canon. But if you ask anyone who makes Predator, aliens are involved. So technically, yes and no. In the Alien franchise, Yautjas aren't canon. In the Predator franchise, Xenomorphs are canon. It's really
but
weird.
See, that's the thing, is because in, like, for example, and this is a weird example, but in, like, the Predator lore, Yautja used to be able to change their gender for mating purposes. They used to be able to go back and forth, for the sake of being able to have more leeway with reproduction. But then it got to a point where there was like an encounterment with xenomorphs, and ever since then their ability to switch back and forth has not only reduced, but it's gotten to the point where newer generations cannot do it. So now they specifically go through mating rituals where the men have to fight each other like lions and kill each other, and whoever comes out on top and most brutal and most lethal gets to mate with the female Yautja, all because of xenomorphs.
I know, I hear what you're saying, but I'm just telling you, like, depending on who you ask, most notably Fox goes back and forth on whether or not the Yautjas are a part of the aliens canon or not. Which I know someone in the comments is typing away right now, and they're like, that's not fucking true, they are canon. Or, shut up. I'm sorry. I mean, you know this, but the comments that have been in some of my videos, like, shut the fuck up.
They've been outrageous.
Just keep your thought to... If you want to say hi, hey guys, maybe your video was a little boring, but I sat through it. Like, that's
that's a cool comment. Or tell us that we did a great job, or we did a bad job. Or give us
your opinion.
But to sit...
Because it's your opinion. And not throw out things like, it's Brandon Lee, not Brandon Bruce Lee. You moron.
You moron. Oh, gee. You think that's bad? You should go through my Venom.
No, I have. I'm all down for debate and for conversation and opinions.
Educated.
But, like, even if your opinion is wrong, it's your opinion.
Even if
my opinion might be wrong, but it's my opinion.
Yeah.
And we can talk about it, and that's fine. But as soon as you start telling people that their opinions are wrong, and you start like making an issue out of it, then yeah, we're gonna have problems because we're having a lovely conversation, and you just had to be so mean and dumb about someone's middle name.
His middle name is Bruce.
Yeah, it is. Was.
Google it. It's like the biggest resource on the planet Earth. It's free. It's called Google.
And
look up his name. It's
literally the first 3 words of his description. Brandon Bruce Lee. That's what this episode should be called. It says, you're a moron.
Bruce is his middle name. Oh, you're a moron. You know what? I'm going to do that. Title of this video, Pilot, Bruce is his middle name.
People will be confused.
I think we did the rating already for Alien, but you said 8 out of 10? Yeah. I gave it a solid 9 out of 10. I think the only reason I would give it any less is just because...
I don't think I ever said why I gave it an 8.
Didn't you?
I just wanted more of the xenomorph.
Oh.
Like, they did a lot of suspenseful shots, like very similar to the first Alien movie. But I felt like there could have been more. I feel like the amount that we got wasn't until the very end of the movie. But I wanted just a little bit more. And I wanted a little bit more chest bursting. We saw it once. It was like...
That's what
it was intense, but it wasn't even like a burst. It was like a shift.
And it was creative.
It was.
Yeah, like the little X-ray
But to
machine
make up
thing.
for it, give us like a more traditional chest burst.
And that's kind of what I was going to get at, too, was... like, the only reason I'd go down to a 9 is for, like, very minor nitpicks. Like, the life cycle, which a lot of people have pointed out, is a lot faster than a traditional alien life cycle. Like, from the period of time that she got the face hugger on, pulled off, and the xenomorph bursted out of her chest, was a very small amount of time. Whilst in, like, some of the canon, it's taken up to a day for it to happen.
Right.
Let alone the xenomorph itself has grown fast before, but even then, we, like you said, like on the note of what I said, and then on the note of like seeing more of the xenomorph, it was strange seeing one chest burster, and then by the end of the movie there was like a horde of xenomorphs.
Like they were just
like where the fuck they were hiding the whole time?
Chilling.
I don't know. Like I know they did have like the hive, and they had like the place where people were playing.
Yeah, but what were they doing? Like, but they're still playing cards, like while they're waiting for their new.
Yeah,
mate?
They were like, it's like that picture that's all over the internet of the Yautja and the xenomorph playing pool together. They're just like,
or like the poker table with all the dogs, but they're all just xenomorphs wearing like dad clothes.
They're like, guys, I think there's someone downstairs. Oh, okay, we should go. They all just, and then that's the scene where Tyler's picked up and they're all like.
We all
crawling
leave at the
through
same
tunnel.
time. No one look at my cards.
Cards down, people. I don't play poker. I don't know any of the terminology. But yeah, damn, we are at 2 hours and 40 minutes right now of recording. But with all that being said, it's been a crazy year, especially the end of the year, and there's still a lot more to come. We have a lot to talk about that's coming out just the rest of this year between August and December. Something that comes from top of my head is the remake of Nosferatu, directed
Very
by
excited.
Robert Eggers. That movie looks awesome. And I even rewatched the original Nosferatu and then Nosferatu the Vampire, which was like a remake sort of Nosferatu in like the 70s. It wasn't nearly as good, but I'd like to see how this one compares, and I want to see all the weird Robert Eggers stuff thrown into it. A lot of big, and Bill Skarsgård gonna be is Nosferatu.
Oh shit! Really? No,
You didn't know that? Yeah, he is Nosferatu.
dude. There's a shit ton of like high name actors in that movie, and I can name two of them that were in previous vampire movies. One of them playing Nosferatu.
Yeah, Bill Skarsgård is Count Orlok, is his real name in the movie. Willem Dafoe, it looks like he's got a different name unless he plays a different person. Professor, because
he plays like a doctor or something.
From my understanding, yeah, but in the original movie, the doctor was Dr. Van Helsing. But it looks like he has a different name in this movie. Emma Corrin, who was just Cassandra Nova, is going to play Anna Harding in this movie. Lily Rose Depp is Johnny Depp's daughter, obviously. She's going to be Ellen Hutter, which is the main girl of the whole movie. Nicholas Hoult is Thomas Hutter, who's the main character, and the list goes on. Aaron Taylor Johnson is going to be in this movie. Knock is being played by Simon McBurney. It's a crazy cast. Probably a huge budget. I'm not entirely sure what the budget looks like for this movie. But that doesn't matter because Robert Eggers can make a phenomenal horror movie off of a dime. So, and he's done Nosferatu before. Apparently, when he was a kid, he directed a play at school of Nosferatu. So he's very familiar with the story and the characters.
How cool would that be? It's like for
So-
fun, you did like a play, you like wrote a play in school, and then like you're an adult and someone's like, hey, can you do that same thing but with like a much bigger budget?
Yeah, we're going to give you like $80 million, do a whole movie.
Give you a phenomenal cast of like top tier actors.
Yeah.
Nice.
I'm actually curious. I want to see if that's released yet. Nosferatu 2024 comes out in December, I think on Christmas, by the way.
It's a weird date for a
budget.
vampire movie.
There's no initial answer, so maybe that's not released yet. But anyways, you know what, Brandon? I think we are at a great place to cut it. We've talked about Deadpool and Wolverine. Sorry, it's a Wolverine movie. Don't get at me. Deadpool Wolverine was a great highlight for me, not the highlight of this year. The Crow was an underwhelming outcome, unfortunately, but I still enjoyed it for what it was. And then Alien Romulus came in strong, came in swinging. In my eyes, took this year's pop culture stuff out of the ballpark. And I'd love to see what Fede Alvarez does next. We discussed next video. We want to talk about movies that we had different opinions or currently have different opinions
the vast
about
majority of
than like the general
Right.
consensus. And yeah, I look forward to talking about that next week. And I almost just did my outro to my channel with my two-legged, four-legged people.
Adios, farewell.
We need to figure. Yeah, we need to figure that out.
Shit.
But if you stuck around this long,
We're sorry.
I think I speak for both of us saying that that's an outro to another podcast. Don't do that. The sad boys.
Oh.
But yeah, if you stuck around this long, that's crazy. It's more than 2.5
I think with
hours long.
editing, it's probably not
Um,
going to be as long, but
It's gonna be as long. But yeah, we're extremely grateful and thankful, and we wish that you will come back for next week and our conversation then. And I promise I will come up with a better intro
and outro. And I should probably be involved a little bit more in the intro. It was
You
was
probably should.
talking. Brandon.
Well, do you have any words before we leave?
You want to see something scary? Look out for Terry. Some of you know what that means.
Brandon, you just gave me a bunch of shit about not having words, and then you do an obscure reference to your channel. Don't
I didn't
give
say
me
anything
that
about
one.
you not having words.
No, you not having
Oh.
words.
You made plenty of
Yeah.
nods at your channel. I threw out one.
I'm just giving you a hard time. Anyways, we're just joking around, and I'm sure there will be plenty to come. Brandon, I hope you have a good rest of your night.
I hope you have one too.
All right, everyone. We will see you guys in the next video.
Adios.
Bye-bye.
Holy cannoli.